Welcome to Climate Quickies, bite-sized nuggets of climate goodness from our TEDxLondon experts in under 5 minutes.
In this week's Climate Curious, we're celebrating the reintroduction of beavers to London after a 400-year hiatus. A furry family of 5 beavers moved into Ealing, West London 4 months ago, so we thought we'd check up on them, hear how they're getting on, and ask what do beavers have to do with climate change in the first place. You'll also learn some cool stuff about beavers, like how long they can hold their breath for underwater, what they have in common with capybaras, and how you can join the beaver safari this summer. Let's hear more from this week's guest, vet and conservationist Sean McCormack. Stay curious.
Hi, I'm Sean McCormack. I'm a vet, a wildlife conservationist and presenter. So the Ealing Beaver Project kind of came about 3 years ago. It was set up by Citizen Zoo and the Beaver Trust. Beaver Trust came and did a kind of feasibility visit on 10 or 12 sites. And they said that our site in Ealing called Paradise Fields was probably the best place they'd seen to trial an urban beaver reintroduction project. So that's where it came from. It's probably been 3 years in the making, about a year of going back and forth with Natural England and convincing them it was a good idea. And the last year or so getting ready for the beavers' arrival. And they arrived in October 2023 and they've settled in very well. I'm a true beaver believer. So beavers are quite unique in the rodent family. So they are rodents. They're related to, rats, mice, squirrels and other rodents. They're the second largest rodent in the world after the South American capybara. And what's quite unique about them is that they exist in family groups. They act they're a social rodent and they work together basically to all form this amazing wetland landscape that they need. And effectively what a beaver's motivation in life is to work together to try and create an area of sanctuary for their family from predators and get to abundant sources of food. The way they do that, because they're semi-aquatic, they live in the water and a little bit on land, but they're really tied to the water for safety. And they make dams which hold back water to create deep water for safety so they can retreat from predators. And a beaver can go underwater and hold its breath for up to 15 minutes. They're a species that has huge effects on lots of other things. They're known as an ecosystem engineer or a keystone species, which means that their impact is much more magnified than lots of other species because they change their landscape and they create opportunities and the right habitats for lots of other things to come back as well. And they're really creating that amazing ecosystem by their kind of engineering works and the collaborative approach they take to life. So that's what makes them quite unique. Beavers were almost eliminated across the world. The North American beaver was, highly sought after for its fur, its meat, its gland secretions and things like that. There was also then an aspect of, draining the swamp and clearing up wetlands for agricultural production. Similar story in Europe, where we were down to about 12 to 1,500 beavers across the whole of Europe in the 16th century. So there was a real bottleneck where they almost died out, but they're on the way back worldwide. And I've lived in Vancouver briefly, and there are beavers downtown in Stanley Park in Vancouver. There are beavers living in other cities across the world, Munich and Berlin in particular. Quite famous examples where beavers are living in the heart of the city. So we at Ealing Beaver Project kind of thought, do you know what, the majority of people live in towns and cities. I think it's something like 84% of people in Britain live in towns or cities. And nature shouldn't be, the exclusive kind of preserve of people living out in the countryside and wilderness. But there's countless kind of benefits to having nature kind of based solutions or thriving ecosystems, and that's something that can help us in cities as well. So across the world, people have studied the benefits of beavers. And then another brilliant example of beavers, unexpectedly doing good in the landscape was in California wildfires in the last couple of summers, where massive tracts of land were burning down and people were evacuating off the land, and they found that actually the fire breaks were the beaver ponds and beaver landscapes where beavers were holding water on the land. That land could not char and could not burn, and it was a refuge for lots of wildlife species, but also a kind of an ark for all of this biodiversity to recolonize the landscape after the wildfires. So we're seeing huge benefits and beavers kind of coming back into the levels they once were. So what's the link between kind of beavers and the climate crisis? The main aim that we wanted to show with the Ealing Beaver Project is that beavers can help with flood mitigation in times of heavy rainfall. So this winter, their first few months in the environment, we've seen, physically seen the amount of water they're holding back on the landscape when we've had heavy rainfall. Whereas before, that water used to flash through the brook in Paradise Fields in a matter of kind of seconds to minutes. Now it's probably taking, an hour or more to percolate through their system of 4 dams they've already created in the space of 3 months. And they're holding back huge amounts of water on the land, and then it's percolating out slowly. And downstream of Paradise Fields, we should hopefully see a reduction in those flash flood events that were previously so common in the wintertime. Already within a few months, we're seeing a change there. So huge effects of mitigating the effects of climate change, but also helping directly with climate change in terms of carbon capture and things as well. It was a collaborative approach, and its community is at the heart of it. And at this point in time, we're nearly 4 months in. The daily tasks are done all by volunteers. We've got an incredible volunteer group who are doing daily fence patrols, who are camera trapping and monitoring the beavers' behaviour and welfare, who are getting involved with any kind of maintenance or repair work that needs to be done, and really keeping an eye on those beavers and acting as advocates, within Paradise Fields, within that enclosure for people passing through, and talking about the beavers and how wonderful it is to have them back on our doorstep in urban London. Ealing Beaver Project is open to the public all the time. So you can come down anytime and have a stroll around and see if you can spot any beaver signs. There's also some guided walks. Follow us on Eventbrite, Ealing Wildlife Group. So we're one of the project partners that runs the walks. And you can sign up for a guided tour there where you'll see a lot more. In terms of seeing a beaver, it can be quite difficult because they're nocturnal. Well, actually, they're termed crepuscular, which means they come out at dawn and dusk and through the night. So the best time of year to see a beaver is in this late spring and all through the summer. So in the summertime, we're going to be running some beaver safaris where we'll go down there in the evening, and hopefully we'll have a handle on their daily routine and nightly emergence, and we'll be able to show you beavers coming out.
Thanks for listening to this quickie.
This episode was created by our superstar podcast team at TEDxLondon. Until next time,
Stay curious.